Welcome to the Glass is Half Full talk show. Let's face it, life can be tough in many ways. Here on the Glass is Half Full, we focus on how life is tough financially. Dealing with these financial realities can be a challenge. Essentially, we have to find ways to do more with less. Less money, that is. The show is focused on helping you discover ways to achieve that goal, even if you don't have a lot of money to work with. We'll be meeting people from many different walks of life. They'll share their stories and expertise. Looking to do more with less and maintain a positive attitude while you're doing it? Welcome to the Glass is Half Full. Now let's join Richard and his guests in the studio.
Hi, I'm Richard Killen. Welcome to the Glass is Half Full, the show that tries to get people to get a better bang for their buck, even if they're kind of short on the bucks. So today, we're joined by Barry Choi. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you for having me.
Barry, I'll have to read this, Barry, to make sure I get it right. Barry is a Toronto-based personal finance and travel expert who frequently appears on City TV, Global, CTV, and other TV programs. Right? He's also a regular contributor to many financial and travel publications. And his blog, Money We Have, is one of Canada's most trusted sources when it comes to both finance and travel. So once again, Barry, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Barry, today I'd like to cover both of the aspects of finance and travel. Okay, so I'd like to start with personal finance, maybe on the basis that if you don't have any money whatsoever and no credit cards, you're not going to travel very far anyway.
No,
right?
no, not at all.
I think you'll agree with me when I say that that credit cards are the most ubiquitous, they're the most common form of personal credit in Canada.
Definitely.
And everybody 18 or over has at least one.
They should.
If not 12.
Yeah.
I don't agree with 12, but that's okay.
Don't ask me how many I have.
So I'd like to start off with credit cards. Okay, talk about credit cards. Now, one of the things about credit cards, if you're in the credit card business, to promote the card, to push your product, you use many gimmicks, shall we say? Many special offers. And one of the most common ones that certainly that I've heard of is the balance transfer, usually based on interest rates. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so the thing about balance transfer is it seems like a gimmick, but I think it's one of the best options out there, especially for people who have run up debt on their previous credit cards. Because usually when you look at an offer, you're talking about points, cash back, benefits for airports or whatever. But with the balance transfer option, you're basically guaranteed a lower interest rate when you sign up by transferring your previous balance to this new card. One good example is MBNA Trueline Gold card. It has a 0% interest rate for 9 months. It comes with a $39 fee and a 1% balance transfer fee. But you know, 0% obviously is much lower than, say, the 19.99% that you're currently paying.
Yes, I notice the difference.
Yeah, huge difference, right? And even then, there's the nice thing about that is even if you can't pay off the entire balance right away, the balance or the interest rate goes up to 8.99 or 12.99 depending what you have, which is still lower than what you're paying before. Right. The key thing is to understand that if you're going to do this balance transfer, it's not just to like constantly balance transfer to avoid paying your bills. The whole goal is to pay down your balance, right? So if you're going to continue picking up debt with your new credit card, it doesn't matter. You're going to run into a hole eventually.
Now, obviously, this is depends how you handle your cards, isn't it?
That's right.
Like if you're paying your card off at the end of every month, you're getting down to zero at the end of every month. You really don't have a credit card there, do you?
You have no debt, right? Like that's the beautiful thing about credit cards. When used responsibly, not only do you build a good credit score, you can reap all the benefits from the points you earn or the cash back that you earn.
So, on whole, it's good to take advantage of these things, depending on what it is you're transferring and how much.
100% it depends on the situation.
Good. We've all kind of, pretty well everybody I hope has heard about the term consolidation loan, but they may not be 100% sure how that works. Can you flesh that out for us?
Yeah, generally speaking, is you get one big loan at a lower interest rate. I'm going to make up this number. Let's just say you get that loan for 7%. Well, then with that loan, you pay off all your other debts. So if we're talking about those credit cards that have 19.99%, maybe your car financing is 10%. So you're getting this loan with a lower interest rate to pay off all your other loans. The key thing to remember is these loans are kind of open-ended. So you can continue to pick up debt if you're not careful. So you can't just accept this loan thinking that, oh, I'm going to do this. You really need to have a plan to pay off your debts.
So you have 7 or 8 credit cards. and you owe a grand total of $30,000, we'll say, or $40,000. Okay? So you would go and you would get a loan from a bank, from a finance company, or whatever, that is offering you an interest rate which is going to be better than what the credit cards are.
Presumably, exactly. You take that amount you get paid off, but you also really got to pay attention to the terms of that loan, because it may be 7%, but it might be a floating rate where it could change at any time. Or keep in mind, sometimes they can call that loan back, and if you don't have that money handy, you actually end up with more debt.
But in this, you're changing from one type of credit to another, right? You're changing from revolving credit to a fixed credit, where you're paying both interest and principal down over a scheduled period of time, right?
Exactly. So that's where you got to really read the details. There's all these different types of loans you can get. Sometimes people will get like a interest-only loan, for example, and they don't realize they're making the minimum payments, but in reality, they still haven't paid back anything.
No, that's for sure. If all you're doing is paying the interest.
Exactly. People just don't realize that.
Yeah, but one of the things that I've found in my business is that people get a consolidation loan, but perhaps the lending institution that gave them the loan didn't insist on cutting up the credit cards. Or something like that, or maybe they did, and the credit card companies send them new ones and things like that. And within a couple of years or something, the consolidation loan still has 3 years to go, but the credit cards have gone back up to perhaps even as much as what they owed when they got the consolidation loan.
I think secretly that's the goal of the lenders, right? They want to make money off you. They're not just...
Well, we shouldn't be cynical about these things.
Well,
right?
you know. Okay, let's just say that's right.
It's unfortunate.
It is definitely unfortunate. That's why I was saying you need to have that plan of attack, right?
That's what you were talking about.
Exactly. So you take that loan, you pay off your highest interest debt first, so you can just reduce the amount of interest you're paying, and maybe right away you lower you either maybe cut up the card. It's a good thing to do right away. You can't spend it if you don't have access to the card, or you lower your limit. If you know you've had spending issues and a problem, or close some cards, maybe just get down. If you had 7 or 8 cards, maybe go down to 1 or 2 with a lower limit, and just get some self-control and educate yourself. And I think if you've gotten as far as getting this consolidation loan, you're smart enough to realize that you might have a problem and you want to learn from it.
Hopefully, yeah. But the thought process will have started to move in that direction anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Just to segue a little bit into the travel side of things that we're going to talk about a little bit later, Barry. I understand you're a bit of a fan of travel rewards.
I like travel rewards with credit cards, yeah.
I don't fully understand them, but maybe it's because I don't take advantage of them like perhaps I should. I don't know. Educate me on this, Barry.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Like you know, when you sign up for a new credit card, a travel one, they offer you a nice generous sign-up bonus. But there's always conditions. You got to spend X amount before X date, usually 3 months, right? And then you earn points on all your purchases, which can then be redeemed for discount on travel. The key thing is, as we already discussed, is you have to pay off your balance in full every single month, because what good is earning 3% in travel rewards if I'm paying close to 20% in interest? It makes no sense. But quite often people can just fool themselves into thinking that, no, I deserve this vacation, or it's a good deal. It's quite often not, right?
Yeah, so let the emotional side of decision making take over.
There's no doubt a lot of people suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out. They see on social media what their friends are doing, and they know they can do it too, but they have to put it on credit. And unfortunately, you know, sometimes you think it's people who don't have any money or low income that are taking advantage, but you know, you could have a good salary and just abuse your credit cards at the same time.
Yeah, I see that a lot. In fact, that's one of the reasons people get a lot of credit, is because they have a good salary and they're able to make the payments.
Well, that's the key thing. We're talking about travel rewards. The higher salary you get, you qualify for better credit cards, which better benefits, better rewards. It's really easy to get trapped.
More debt.
Yeah, if you don't pay off it, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's for sure. On the subject of all of the travel and all that, would it be advisable, and are there credit cards that lend themselves to this, to have one or a couple of credit cards that are designed for travel and others for domestic use?
Yeah, for me, it's not like a travel credit card that you're using just for travel. It's the type of rewards you're earning, right? So you can use them domestically, internationally. Again, it's the type of rewards you want to earn. So, you know, the WestJet's got their own credit card, Aeroplan has theirs, but then each bank has their own travel program where you can earn points. That said, there are certain credit cards that are designed specifically for all-in-one use. Scotiabank released the Passport credit card a few years back, which gives you no foreign transaction fee. So it saves you a minimum of 2.5% whenever you make a purchase in a foreign currency. So yeah, you could argue that that is a great card to be using internationally.
That you mentioned foreign currency. I was going to ask you about are there cards that are advantageous in terms of what do they call it? Currency exchanges?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned that 2.5%, and a lot of people who are watching this right now might be like, "What are you talking about? I don't get charged that fee." What they don't realize is that it's baked right into your exchange. So if you're buying something in U.S. dollars, when you see the Canadian amount, the extra 2.5% is already in there, unless you have a credit card that doesn't charge foreign transaction fees. Fortunately, over the last couple of years in Canada, it's become a big issue. So there are more and more credit cards available. There's almost like 10 credit cards now that in Canada have no foreign transaction fees. But if you go back 3 years, there's only 2. So there's more and more options. It just, each card is different, so you got to do a little bit of a research.
I guess that the whole idea of transaction fees is another question too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy how many fees we pay, right?
How crazy is it?
Well, again,
in terms of the credit cards,
the foreign transaction fee is just 2.5%, right? But it's on any foreign currency. Like these days, people are buying things online, U.S. dollars. So why pay the premium when you don't have to? You just apply for one credit card that doesn't charge you the fees. You can save every single time. So it's not like a huge amount if you're buying something small, but over time, it definitely adds up. The way I look at it is, let's just say I looked at all my trip expenses. If I was, say, going to Italy, the amount in fees I pay could be the same as one nice meal while I'm there. So I'd rather have that nice meal than pay fees.
Now you mentioned currency exchange fees and all that, but what other kinds of transaction fees should we guard against if we're thinking of using credit cards?
Well, it depends. Like a lot of people, there's cash advance fees, right? Where you don't want to get into that because that's where you're paying to access money that you don't have, and you pay a higher interest fee. As far as credit cards are concerned,
would be on when you get a cash advance. Usually, you start paying interest on that money right from the time you get the money, right?
And you get to pay a higher interest fee.
And higher interest?
That's right.
Is there a separate fee on this?
There might be. It just depends on the terms and conditions of your card, right? Every card is different. Generally speaking, most credit cards don't have a fee when you use them unless it's a cash advance and international. But again, it really depends.
So Barry, I said we'd eventually get into the travel side of things, right? Because our audience presumably is looking for some information, some, let's call them tips, on how to get that better bang for the buck. Okay.
Sure.
So now I'm going to ask you for some tips.
Yeah.
But we're going to go over to the travel side of things.
Okay.
All right. So most of the people watching this probably are family people, have children and all that. What tips can you give us about getting more from on a single family holiday, we'll say? Okay?
Well, it really depends on your budget. So that's where I like to start more than anything else. If you want to make travel part of your family life, you got to set money aside for it. A good example, and I'm throwing out a random number here, right? If you were able to put aside $500 a month, that would give you $6,000 a year. That may seem like a lot of money for some people, like to put aside that amount. But I'm just throwing out these numbers there, just as an example. You got to remember, it's like you can't necessarily travel every single year. So if you don't have that much amount saved, wait for the next year, right? I didn't travel every single year when I was younger, but once you've got that money set aside, you can do whatever you want with it, right? Because the key thing is you're not dipping into your credit cards or any lines of credit to pay off for your travel. And that's where I like to start. And then, based on what your budget is, then you start deciding where you can go. So if you've got a lower budget, maybe you think about closer to home. Road trips, right? Or taking advantage of things that are going on where you live. A lot of events in the summer. We're based in Toronto. The city of Toronto throws on tons of events. You could spend every single weekend doing something within the city and not pay a penny.
Yes, I know of some of those. Yes, I know. Yep, that's part of the action, right? The idea that you're trying to end your vacation with less debt, or at least no more debt than what you started with, right?
You should never go into debt for vacation, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh. How do you like that straight line, Barry? Is there some things you can tell us about saving money on air travel?
Yeah, well, the easiest thing, and this is really hard for families, is off-season travel is obviously the quickest way to save money. A good example is if you were to try to fly to Europe from Canada, you're looking at probably $1,000, right? But if you're to go like, right now, September or October, I know it may not be September or October when you guys are watching this, but the point is it's off season. A flight might cost you anywhere from $600 to $800. So you think about it, that's 20% savings right there.
Sure, yeah.
And then on top of that, because you're traveling during the off season, hotels are typically 20 to 25% cheaper also. Another easier way to save, in my opinion, is to literally sign up for every single newsletter out there. Airlines, tour operators, and the reason I say that is because they let their readers know right away when there's a sale. So if you know there's a sale and you can see a discount, another good example is Air Canada Vacations quite often runs promotions where kids stay for free, right? That's a great deal, but you just got to know about that promotion.
And they bombard you with this stuff.
They totally do, because they want you to buy it. They want you to spend with them, right? You do have the problem with those things is you got to have some self-discipline. There are some people out there who will see these deals and be like, well, I got to go because it's such a good deal. Well, it's not a deal if you got to pay it back later and you don't have the funds available.
It never is it? What about combination bookings? Packages.
Yeah,
like
packages can be good. So it depends on how you're looking at it. If you're doing an all-inclusive resort, quite often it makes more sense to go through, say, Air Canada Vacations, Sunwing, WestJet Vacations. But if you're also looking to book your flights, hotels, and say a car rental, Expedia.ca is probably one of the best solutions to go through. Yeah, they openly advertise it, and I've run the numbers in the past, and it works. And the nice thing about Expedia is you don't need to book all three things at the same time. So let's say you book your flight and you decide a week later, I'm going to get a hotel. And then another week later, you're like, oh, I do need a car rental. If they give you like basically a window where as long as you book everything, eventually you still get the savings.
So you're not locked into having planned everything.
That's right.
Right down
exactly.
to the
and they remind you, right? They'd be like, hey, you got 2 more weeks to save on X amount. So they want you to book with them, right?
Really? Would they say that?
They do.
How do you feel about cruises and tours?
Tours, I actually think, are really good value. People don't like tours because it's just like, oh, I don't want to get on this big giant bus with 100 other people and it's not fun. Well, it's insane when you think about it. There's literally probably 1,000 different tour operators out there. So it's a matter of finding the right tour that makes sense for you, your lifestyle, the type of adventure you want. I did a tour with Intrepid Travel a couple years back, and there was only 8 people on the tour. It's fantastic, right?
Sure.
And when you break down the cost of everything, the meals that are included, which isn't always included, the guide, the accommodations, and the transportation, it's a pretty good value. More importantly, I didn't have to spend any time planning. Cruises are a little bit trickier because each cruise is so different. And what I don't like about cruises is the fact that you basically pay a base price and you got to pay for every single upgrade. Right, you got to pay for gratuities. You got to pay for the nicer restaurants. Obviously, if you're going to go to the casino on the ship, you got to pay there. There's and day excursions too, right? So you could avoid all of that if you wanted, but most people will spend a little bit extra on cruises.
I've had a couple of people work for me who were very, very into tours. Practically every year, the cruises. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cruises. Much the same thing, because the big selling point to them was they unpack once and they pack once.
That's right.
It's like their hotel moves with them. Right?
It's the experience, right? There's no doubt some cruises, like you think about the cruises that go through Scandinavia or the Mediterranean, like just think about planning that on your own. Like I said, you pack once, they take you, you're there, it's great. So I do actually think cruises can have a lot of good value. People just got to realize that it's not necessarily just the base price you're paying. There will be extras you're going to pay, because you're not going to sit on the ship the entire time while it's docked in some new exotic destination. You're going to go explore, right? You're going to go buy, you're going to go shop.
What you're saying basically is there are 2 types of tours, right? There's the tour that essentially is focused on you just having fun. And it's almost like the casino tour, and where the casino goes with you. And you dock here and there, and you want to go off and buy some things at the local market or something. But then the essence of the tour is what the ship can provide. Sorry, the cruise.
Yeah, you're basically paying for access
whereas
to the
cruise. Mediterranean cruise that you mentioned, okay, you go from here to there, and then you get off and you visit, and you come back to your hotel, and then your hotel moves over to the next place.
That's pretty much it. That's exactly it.
Very different tours.
It's a unique experience, right? Cruising is great. Yeah. It can be fun, but not everyone's into it.
There's kind of difference between a cruise and a tour.
Well, I'm talking about cruise ship versus a bus tour, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But, the Mediterranean one that I described there is more of a tour than a cruise.
Well, no, it's a cruise. If you're on a cruise ship, it's a cruise, right? It's not a tour, it's a cruise.
one lady I'm thinking about used to always say, I'm going on a tour.
She's going on a cruise, assuming she was on a boat.
I used to argue about that with her too. Interesting. Is there any particular, what would you call it, Garden of Eden out there for us? Is there any particular place that you'd recommend people to set their eyes on in terms of this tour, cruise, or
well, if you're talking about
foreign
destinations,
excursion?
it depends on what you're looking for. It's so hard, different budgets, right? Like I said, if you're flexible, you can get a lot of deals out there as far as I'm concerned. Cruising, if again, flexibility, a good example is, I was talking to my mother the other day, and she found a cruise coming out of Vancouver, about 6 nights, ending in Los Angeles, including airfare. It was $1,200. It's
Wow.
like, that's like actually really cheap when you think about it, because the flight alone was about $600. So, 6-7 nights on a ship, some stops. It's like you said, basically a hotel for a week that travels with you, and all the meals. I'm like, that's a pretty good price, right?
Sure.
But that's because she's retired and she can just jump on a plane next week and it wouldn't matter, right? But to
For
me,
$1,200 for a week, I mean, most places you'll stay will charge you close to that.
yeah, exactly, right?
And it doesn't move.
But I also like to look at other destinations. To me, it's kind of like, what's trending and what has good value. It sounds a bit crazy, but like 5-6 years back, after Egypt was going through the Middle East crisis and the Egypt uprising, as soon as they elected a new president, I was like, yo, I'm going, because it's like they got a new president, everything's safe, and more importantly, like everything was like 50% off still. So sometimes you gotta look at the situations around the world and
Did you write about that?
take advantage. I think I did. I don't remember.
Because I think my sister-in-law must have read it.
I'm not saying like put yourself in any danger or go anywhere crazy, but you can be smart about your travels.
With credit cards, since they've replaced the traveler's checks, what can you tell us about, number one is avoiding the devastation of losing all your cards and the inconvenience of things.
Yeah, it's tricky. You just got to be smart about your surroundings. Just be smart about how you use your credit cards. Number one, whenever you travel, most of the times you still need to let your credit card provider know that you're traveling, so you don't get locked out when you make purchases. And being smart. If you're going to a heavy tourist area that's known for pickpockets, maybe you're wearing your wallet in your front pocket or you're putting your bag in front of you. You can't make yourself a target, right? I know it's easy for me to say that, but you got to need to be aware of your surroundings. And also people forget, it's like, when you go home, what you should also do is change your PINs right away, because in the event that you used a terminal that was compromised, they still usually need your PIN to actually make a transaction. So even if they cloned your card and you've changed your PIN, it's no good to them anymore.
Right. Prepaid cards.
Yeah.
How do you think of them in terms of travel?
It depends on how you look at it, right? Like those traditional prepaid cards that people are probably thinking in their heads right now is where you could be able to take advantage of an exchange rate early, which is not bad, but prepaid cards, as weird as it sounds, it's not always accepted everywhere. These days there's better prepaid options in the sense where they're loadable credit cards like Stack and Coho that use the Visa and MasterCard networks that are more internationally recognized. I like them, but you know how we're talking about credit cards without foreign transaction fees? I still think that's the cheapest way, so why would you go with the prepaid when you've got a credit card without foreign transaction fees?
Okay. So in terms of travel, you're not a big fan of them?
Prepaid cards? Yeah. Not at all.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
All right. And for domestic use, though, certainly in my world, prepaid cards are a very positive thing to have. Yeah. I won't explain why. This is about you talking about travel. But speaking of that, I understand that you publish, or you have a guide called The Cost of Travel.
Yep.
And my God, Barry, it's free.
It is free.
How does one get that?
Just go to my website, moneyweave.com, and a box will pop up saying sign up for my newsletter. That's simple.
God. Sounds tricky to me.
No, it's not.
Can you tell us what the guide covers?
Literally everything you need to know. A few things we already talked about. Setting up your budget, how to save on flights, how to save on hotels, travel insurance, picking your destination. It's just like a little guide I wrote. I don't even remember how many pages. I think it's like 50 or something. Yeah. Of all the travel tips I've learned over the years that have helped me save money. And the funny thing is, once you know these tips, it's like they're just in your head. It's nothing really special. People just don't know how to take advantage of things that are right in front of them.
And keep your backpack on the front.
Yeah, I guess technically that saves you money.
In the crowd.
Yeah.
And on subways.
There you go.
So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Here's a little gift.
Oh,
I'm going to put it this way so that folks can see it. It's a book. This is why we call this The Glass is Half Full. It was written to emphasize the value and the importance of attitude in turning whatever negative situation you may find yourself in, whether it be somebody stole your backpack or something when you're in Geneva, or you just run out of, you've overspent on your credit cards here in Toronto. Doesn't matter, a negative situation can be turned into a positive opportunity with the right attitude.
Amazing.
Okay, so I tried to put that into print. Okay? Anyway, thanks again for joining us.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.